At the beginning of the interview, I just want to clarify that the NBC has other archives, but today I'm only going to talk about the radio archive. So a radio archivist, and specifically the NBC radio archivist, is mainly responsible for acquiring NBC radio programs from all the 10 radio services of the NBC. We then do selection on this material because not all programs are considered as archive-worthy. We then catalog this material, then we preserve them for long-term use. What makes the radio archive important is that just by it being the custodian of broadcast sound, that means we hold a collection of programs that hold historical importance. We also render a user service to our users, and that is the presenters and the producers, and we provide them with old broadcast material for replay or for inserts on radio. And that's what makes the radio archive important to the NBC.
What kind of materials are kept in NBC's radio archives? And are we talking just shows and news, or is there more?
We are talking about programs on oral history. We are talking about programs on industrial history, profiles of prominent figures of the society, profiles of towns and places of interest, etc., etc. And for those who have listened to the radio in the past, they would recall those interesting programs covering interviews with prominent figures of the country who went abroad for the purpose of liberating the country. Interviews were also done with traditional leaders of the past who are no more living. We also have documentaries on the cultures of different tribes in Namibia. So the programs preserved at the radio archive are so many, I cannot mention all of them. But just to put emphasis on the types of programs we preserve at the radio archive, they must really hold historical importance, and that is what we consider as archive-worthy programs.
Do you have any historic or powerful recordings that stand out to you? Maybe moments that give you goosebumps while archiving?
Actually, one or two I can mention. I recall a fairly new program. I think it was broadcast in 2002, just before the Heroes Acre was built. It's an Oshiwambo program of the late founding president and father of the Namibian nation, the late President Dr. Sam Shafishuna Nujoma. He was talking about the importance of building a Heroes Acre. He started talking about how the Namibian independence was attained. He started talking about from way back how the traditional leaders such as the kings and the chiefs of different Namibian tribes were so brave to fight the colonizers. He was even mentioning their names and exactly what they did, the likes of King Nehale Jampingana, Captain Hendrik Witbooi, King Mandume and Demfayo, just to mention a few. And just the excitement in his voice when he talked about that, it really gave me goosebumps. And those are the type of material that I would always encourage our presenters to please come to the archive, request for those materials, and just play them on like commemorative days like the Heroes Day, for example. Another program I recall that gave me goosebumps was a profile of Major General Charles Namolo, former Minister of Safety and Security. He also talked about himself, but he concentrated more on the attainment of the Namibian history. I must mention that I'm a big fan of oral history, so programs on profiles of prominent figures will always be very interesting to me. So basically, those are the two programs I can say that really gave me goosebumps when I was listening to that.
How back do those recordings go, and what condition were they in when you found them?
We have recordings dating as far back as 1969, between those years, but just when the NBC started broadcasting, when it was still called the SWA. But we also have material recorded before that date, interesting profiles. I saw one just before this interview. I was browsing the database and I saw a profile of Louis Leopold. I'm not sure whether I'm pronouncing that name correctly, but yeah, it's an Afrikaans program that was recorded in 1939, and that is one of our oldest recorded material that is available on cassette. The condition of this recording, I can say that some are still in good condition, but I cannot say 100% that because of the challenges we face. I'm even nervous to talk about the fear we have of losing this material that are still on reel. The challenges we are currently facing is deterioration of this material. So there is therefore an urgent need to digitize this material before we even run out of playback equipment that are still functioning but are faced now with extinction. But although we are faced with these challenges, we are working tirelessly just to ensure that they do not affect variation.
We live in a digital world now. How are these old recordings being preserved or digitized for future generations?
The latest format of preservation that we have at the Radio Archive is the compact flash, which is also not so latest. Other archives have already moved on to using new preservation formats. We are busy digitizing our collection, converting the material that are still available on tape and cassette. We are now converting them to compact flash. Then we are backing them up on the online server, which the NBC has made available to us for just in case something happens to the compact flash, then at least we have a backup on the server. But we are positive that the whole collection will soon be digitized despite the challenges.
If someone can be a student journalist or even a curious listener wanted to access something in the archive, is that possible?
It's very much possible. And I'm glad that this year's theme for the celebration of International Archives Week is Archives are accessible, archives for everyone. So this theme really emphasizes how important accessibility is to the details of archives and its capacity to reach a worldwide audience. So our main users are our colleagues, and especially the producers and the printers, but we also cater to the public. So students who would like to do research are welcome, but there are procedures in place that one need to follow, and I can't mention them now because of the time. And while I'm on the accessibility of the archive, I must also mention that the NBC also has the responsibility to generate funds for the corporate. So the materials are not given for free, especially to curious listeners, and there are also procedures in place for that.
For Archives Week, what message do you want to share with the public about the value of radio archives in preserving Namibia's stories?
Archives hold significant value in the sense that it's history preserved, it's evidence preserved. So it's basically tangible, something tangible that we can always make a reference of. So that's just a short message that I have for the public.
And finally, if you could play one archived radio clip for the whole nation today, what would it be and why?
Being the archivist that I am, that would really be an unfair task, as there's so many radio clips that I would pick. But since you put me on the spotlight, and this is my personal preference, not as the radio archivist, but maybe like an archive user, I would play the program of the late founding president, where he talks about the significance of building the Heroes Acre. But that will now be unfair because it's a program that we have in the archive, but it's an Oshiwambo program but it will be unfair to now the listeners that don't understand Oshiwambo.